Welcome, everybody, to the Reel to Reel Wake Up movie review. Today, we are reviewing Inception with Leonardo DiCaprio. And today, joining us is Kevin from the UK, Jeremy from the San Joaquin Valley. Is it Modesto?
Yes, Modesto.
Yes, and Fred from Florida. Welcome, everybody. This Christopher Nolan is a director, and Leonardo DiCaprio is the main star.
Okay, so this is the Inception synopsis. Dom Cobb, or Leonardo DiCaprio, is a thief with the rare ability to enter people's dreams and steal their secrets from their subconscious. His skill has made him a hot commodity in the world of corporate espionage, but has also cost him everything he loves. Cobb gets a chance at redemption when he is offered a seemingly impossible task: plant an idea in someone's mind. If he succeeds, it will be the perfect crime, but a dangerous enemy anticipates Cobb's every move.
Just to start here, Dwayne and I were talking, and what he saw it as was that this is a really good indoctrination film to see to have the public see what they're doing, the reptilians and the elites are doing to people, whereas they can actually enter into dreams. They can actually manipulate your agreement and gain your agreement, especially in that subconscious area, for you to think certain things to be reality. And this is kind of a film showing how they do it, if you can see through it, through the entertainment part of it. They're creating tap lines or agreements for people, and they're showing you the technology here, in a sense, how they're doing it. And it's really what's going on in this world all the time. And like we keep mentioning here, these are documentaries, these movies, and this is a real good one to demonstrate how and what they are doing to get people's agreement, very simply. Go ahead, Kevin.
The whole movie is based on dreams and the infiltrating by a group of individuals into other people's dreams in order to instill ideas that the targets then think are their own, which then will affect their behavior on the physical. Everything is just a view for our awareness, and depending on what we decide, where we place our awareness dictates the view we have. We have this all aliveness, everything, the isness, the real awareness that we and everything actually is. Then we have a simulation we have created that we need to recognize this isness from. As everything created, anything that isn't this isness, everything, allows us to recognize then what the is from the comparison that through what we create, the simulated creation provides. So we construct a personal self. We insert all the programs into it, the ideas that we create and agree with, or the ideas we agree to of others. The personal self then generates the virtual reality creational simulation through the cause-to-effect mechanics of its design, and we place our awareness into this personal self and experience the simulation we have decided based on what ideas we have programmed it with. The personal self comprises of 5 aspects: the physical, astral, causal, mental, and ethereal, and the simulation they all generate. When we dream, we exit the physical vehicle, but if our awareness remains fully immersed in the personal created self, and however we have constructed its consciousness, we still remain in the overall simulation illusion of it, only we are more at liberty to explore freely the agreements, the thrills, fears, the emotionally charged ideas that make up its construction. And other individuals can and will feature in our personal self real side dreams if there is emotional attachment to them, or the agreements to them that allow their presence in our experiences. It's rather an open door for them to feature then on the physical or on the real side in our dreams. Invading people's dreams then can happen if the agreements with the invaders are there, which allow them to feature, as without these agreements you couldn't penetrate the illusionary simulated reality of another. So in the movie, when we have the team led by DiCaprio infiltrating the dreams of others, agreement in some form or another must be present for this to even take place. The agreements can be very apparent, for if we have individuals in our experience on the physical level, they can't be there absent of agreement, and this would extend to their ability to feature in whatever dimension or level of the simulation we happen to be in. They can feature in our dreams. And in the movie, the individuals the team wish to infiltrate already do feature in their physical level experience, indicating then there is agreement that will allow infiltration into their experience when they vacate the physical vehicle for sleep.
Fred, do you have any comments?
More of a question. If the average person is dreaming and there's interference within that dream, is that average person able to combat that?
Well, it's not so much about combating it so much as it is being aware of it and being indifferent to it, because the only reason anything would attack you or really interfere within your dream arena, your real side experiences, is because if you agreed to it. Now, maybe you didn't agree directly to that person attacking you, but the dark forces, the dark brats, whatever, they can construe any agreement to attack you. So it's just becoming more aware of that. And actually, you can really just stand in your real awareness, sort of this being isness state that like they just can't do anything to you because you're not I'm not sure what the word is, but when you stand in that state, they can't do anything to you because you're standing in no agreements and just nothing.
So then you'd have to be aware that this presence is there.
Yeah, and once you're consciously aware of it, you can decide to let it go, or you can decide to retain the agreement that allowed this attack to take place.
And in the movie, is it Fisher, the son? Is his name's Fisher?
That I'm not sure of.
anyway, the sun, you notice on each dream level, there were antagonists, there were attackers. So this could be viewed as his censor coming into play, subconscious censor trying to protect himself from the so-called, inception. Also, as it's interesting that we're watching this, and you get pretty immersed in this movie, but as we're watching this indoctrination, as I see it, we're being indoctrinated too. We're being sucked into agreeing to some of the things that they're showing. For example, here, the spinning token that he spins, DiCaprio, to see whether, he's really dreaming or not. Well, it's all basically real. So they're implying that one is not real, one is real, but everything is real. Our real side experiences are real. This is real. Or else you could say in another way, it's not real, but it's real, in its own reality, it's real. So there's really no distinction between the real side and here. So they're implying that one is real and one is not. And another thing they're implying is that, well, you can get stuck in a dream, which they're really trying to enhance that idea that you can get stuck in a dream, which you can, but with your real awareness, no, you can see beyond that. But they're implying that, okay, you can, like the third level, if you go deep enough, you can get stuck in this level and not come out of it. Or if you come out of it, you're brain dead, no memories. But again, they're playing around with all these complexities when it's really very simple. They're making it very complex. It's very simple. Your real awareness is who you really are, and all these other experiences, whether you think they're real or not, are just that. They're experiences that you can gain from to see more of who you really are and the real awareness that you are. So anybody listening, don't confuse, don't get too complicated here. Keep it simple, because it's very, you can see through this, but they purposely make it complex. And like, DiCaprio being the professional, only he can like get in there and do this work, of extraction or implanting things. Well, anybody can do anything. It's just about awareness. So go ahead, Kevin, if you have number 2 section.
The personal self we program with the ideas we decide upon, then sit in the simulation of it with our awareness. The personal self can be programmed by anyone or anything, if they can determine the means by which to do so. Every action or anything we create begins as an idea, begins with the imagination, then we formulate it with a thought, before we activate it through action on the physical level. We agree and decide on that idea that has its feature on the physical in the simulator. Nothing can be so on the physical without the decision ideas first formulated and agreement that makes it so. As we formulate the ideas with imagination and thought, they will then be featuring on other dimensional levels of the created self and the simulation before they filter through to the physical. It's at that point then, the point where the ideas are formulated on the ethereal and mental levels, that alterations can be made. Thoughts on the real side, on these dimensions of the simulation beyond the physical can be destroyed, changed, or completely new ideas can be inserted. This was very much the case in the movie. The team were accessing, through the agreement that they had to enable them to do so, the unseen parts of the personal self of others, where ideas are formulated, and then they were able to insert new ideas. The personal self is just a mechanic. It simply generates these ideas into a simulated reality to experience, once the awareness that animates it has decided to do so. Naturally, then, we are unlikely to decide on something that we don't want to do. So for another individual to get us to agree and decide on an idea of theirs that isn't actually beneficial for us, this is where marketing ploy comes in, to ensure that we agree with a created idea that is packaged to look good from the surface one-dimensional view. In this movie, the team infiltrated the dream of the target individuals, and rather had to operate in such a way as to have the target convinced as to the benefit of the idea they were trying to insert. More a case, then, that the target had to agree and decide on the idea, for it then to filter through and be so on the physical, regardless of anyone's expertise in such manipulation, as when it comes to it, we are always the deciders of our experience. So the team in the movie ultimately had to get the individual to agree, to decide, although through deceptive means. They recreated the target's memories, accessing the consciousness construction, the memory aspect of the personal self of the target, a little like how the dark force world controllers create scenes and situations on the real side also, to garner agreement through their deceptions, agreement to their ideas that will cause and effect the dark force agendas into a simulated experience. Although at one point in the movie, the target would realize the carpet he was laying upon was made of the wrong material, the team of infiltrators, just like the dark forces, tend to have less than perfect replications and creations, and we can see the flaws in their design, especially the more aware we become.
I would just say kind of the same thing, that in your dream, first you have to be aware, which when you think about it, are you aware in your dreams? It's that's a presumption. Is there a trick to make yourself more aware within your dreams? How do you do that?
To become more aware in your dreams, well, there's a few tricks. I mean, if you're trying to like consciously decide something in your real side experiences, sometimes I just focus on the thought that I want to do that, or I try to put my focus on a place that I'll be at, and sort of like that. But the real side experiences are more just for views, just so you can, because you're an individual, you're on your own journey, so you're going to get what you need to see in order to become more aware according to your journey, how it's going. So they're really just objective views, and they're just a part of it. But yeah, being conscious in them, deciding something, yeah, but they're more so, the way I see it is they're more so for views, so you can become aware of things. So it doesn't really matter to me if I decide something, don't decide something, because I know it's all necessary.
Does that help, Fred?
Thank you, Jeremy.
And also to add to what Kevin said here, the subconscious, which they were accessing here, is very interesting how this works. Our personal self basically is composed of our physical, emotional, and memory bodies and mental bodies. So the subconscious is actually on the plane, the charts that we see, it's beyond the mind. So the mind doesn't really access it, but it, through images and subliminals, it can relate to it, or it can identify with these subconscious implants. That's how it relates to the subconscious, but it's actually beyond the mind, the subconscious plane or area. And this is where we have the intuition, and where we can closer access our real awareness. So it's in between the mind and our real awareness, but it's an area beyond the mind. And that's even behind the Kal Naranjan, or the Gra God. It's on the planes, the chart there, it's beyond him. So it's an interesting area, and the reptilians use this as a weapon to indoctrinate people into, it's like a weaponized subconscious technology that they use to like form agreements with people. So it's very interesting that we even have this subconscious, unconscious area that's between the mind and our real awareness. And we can utilize it to our benefit through our intuition. You know, we can get these hints that the real awareness is giving us through this intuition, and it bypasses the mind. And if we listen to the intuition, we can closer, move toward becoming more aware. I see one other thing is to the water. There's a lot of references to water in the beginning of the movie. He's washed up ashore, the ocean, you could say, is the subconscious area. There's also the second part of the dream that they went into, the van going into the water. And then the third part is the snow, which is like solidified water. So they're sort of trying to solidify the experiences so that you think they're real, but they're all created by them. You didn't create them. You were just agreeing to what they already have created for you. So the water references are kind of interesting too. There's all kinds of little subliminals here, as I say, if you care to look for them in the movie, and most movies too, not just this one. But there's all kinds of things like, you look at a scene and then behind the wall is a poster of something, Coca-Cola or something, back an image or something. The way they create the scenes, there's always something in the scene that it's not by accident. They put these items in the scenario there. So watch for these as you watch the movie. Watch for these subtle things that are always there. Paul Twitchell always said it's the subtle things that make the big difference, not the obvious, but the subtle things that really influence us and can help us become more aware too. It's little subtleties of life.
I wanted to mention this, that the Val, what you were saying earlier about the bodies and the intuition being you could say closer to the real awareness, that's true, because the causal body, like the Akashic records, their Akashic records are with your causal body, but it doesn't house anything past that because it cannot contain a level that doesn't exist on that, it doesn't apply to. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, each body is unique to itself, and it can only be what it is. That we can use it as a tool, and that's where being impartial or being indifferent to these things is valuable to our experience, because then we can see them objectively and then use them instead of being used by them. You know, be cause instead of effect idea. That most people are in, you know, everybody is, we have emotional attachments, and that's what these movies play upon. Look how many movies are about revenge. You know, the daughter gets kidnapped or his wife gets killed or something, or there's always revenge factor, and that's a very emotional quality. You know, we want to get back to resolution of some sort. So they play on our emotions, and they play on our vulnerabilities, which is humans. We have these characteristics within us that they play upon, reptilians and elites.
In the movie, we also see how they go deeper and deeper into the target's dreams to implant their ideas. I can imagine this to be a very practical method, for usually when we have created something, when we're sitting in the reality of it, it very often has been the culmination of a whole series of steps, of ideas and decisions that have made it so. To then want an individual to decide completely differently, to change the reality they are experiencing in whatever way you want this to be so, you very much would have to go to the place where the first thought idea was conceived, that had eventually culminated into the desired experience. For your success in convincing someone to agree to an idea to ultimately change their experience reality could be conflicting with other ideas along the sequence, especially if you didn't garner agreement to change the initial idea, that which got the ball rolling. Indeed, you would ideally have to convince agreement to change all the thoughts that make up the entirety of the experience you want changed, or there will be retained decision agreement ideas that conflict with the agreement ideas you were successful in changing to that which you want, and the results may not be exactly as you desired. And each thought along the sequence would be a simulated reality all of its own, as every thought and step of created reality is a cause and effect dimension that can be accessed and altered if agreement can be gleaned. So in the movie, we see this portrayed as they work backwards through the sequence of individual thoughts and the realities that stem from them, to the point where the initial idea was formulated, and they garner then agreement to change every step, every idea of it, that when successful, the want to decide something entirely different that favours the team of infiltrators filters through to the physical, and the target decides and agrees and takes the action that makes it so on the physical.
You can see how much is done to gain people's agreement. There's so much to it. And that's what the education in our system does not provide. It's a very literal, dumbed down system or education that we get here. So there's so much to this. There's so much for us to become aware of. And that's part of why we're here, to help people to see how this works, the process works. And just like in the dream here, that the three levels, well, it reminds me of time travel, and that idea, it's sort of the same. It's like you're just in a different realm. It's not like really levels, but you're just accessing a different realm, whether it's a dream or you going back in time, so-called. It's just a different experience that you can have to utilize to become more aware. I see also the influence here with Mel, his former wife that died, and she's popping up everywhere in his consciousness there. And she's like Joni and the corporation, and basically an influence. It's always there behind the scenes, or trying to sneak in. And you see how quickly she turned. She's so sweet, and she had tears in her eyes. And then when he didn't agree to her, she picks up the knife, and that's the influence. It's just so sweet and gushy and mushy, and then but it can turn on a dime. What I notice about the real guides, and they don't do harm. They can trick you to your benefit, for you to become more aware, but they're harmless, free beings of light. They do no harm. So that's again a comparison to what the gods of man. I mean, look at all the violence and brutality that's going on in religion and even spirituality. There's so much of that. The real guides, compare that to what they're just bright, shiny beings of light that are real and have a purpose and are here for us to have a relationship with. It's such a difference. It's purity and a sincerity that we don't see in the regular systems of the world. So let's open it up to, I'm sure there's little bits and pieces that you saw. Maybe we can discuss little things that you see in the movie or saw in the movie that maybe you'd like to bring up.
Hey, Val, I wanted to mention this part, that the deeper they went into or what they said, deeper into these levels, and then eventually into like the subconscious, that it was totally militarized. I thought that was an interesting aspect, that these people were actually either they paid or it was done to them or whatever, but they had their subconsciouses militarized. That's the whole reason they were being attacked. I mean, with the soldiers chasing them down, is because they had a service done where their subconscious was like that, with trained basically for something like that. And to comment on that, I think that comes with a lot of the educational systems today, and all these systems, really, it's like gearing us to be a certain way.
Yeah, let me ask you I was kind of curious about this. You have more experience, Jeremy and Kevin, but like in Dreamscape, I think it was called Dreamscape, where they try to assassinate the president. They try to off his astral body, and that killed his physical body, or they're trying to kill his physical body through that. And here we have this guy that was wounded in the dream. So can you actually kill somebody in their dreams and it affects the physical body? How does that work? Or how's the relationship there? I mean, it implied in Dreamscape that you can. Here, whatever, but can you comment on that?
Kevin?
Well, as a lot of people have experienced, a lot of attacks and situations on the real side do translate as physical symptoms. I mean, Dwayne has spoken himself how he has endless attacks and aches and pains and bad backs and such, and I can certainly testify to that myself. I do come back from the physical with all sorts of scarrings and bad niggers and, and such, and a few occasions to the extent. I mean, one of the ones I have shared is when I come back and I almost have this strange, almost arthritic effect in my hands where they're all like seized up, and then it takes a moment for them to ease up, and then they can return to their usual flexibility. And so by that very token, if they can affect you physically in that way, there's no reason why they can't kill you on the real side either, because obviously that would be the most extreme form of that which you can suffer, I suppose. And indeed, I had a real side experience a long time ago where I went into this realm of vampires. I think it was probably in the lower astral, and the same situation applied. What transpired there translated through to the physical, and actually caught, and I was attacked by these vampires in this low astral realm, and they were all biting me, sinking their fangs into me, as vampires have a tendency to do. But as I said, this translated through to the physical and actually caused me to have a stroke. And it took me 3 years to recover from that stroke.
Wow.
And for the duration of the years, I lost all feeling and sensation in my left arm, which is where one of the various symptoms you can have. Some people have the stroke symptoms in their facial features. Me, I lost all feeling in my left arm, but eventually that would rectify itself and it would return to normality. And again, you do see this portrayed in a lot of movies also. If you ever see the Nightmare on Elm Street series, that very much is suggesting the possibility that you can indeed die in your dreams. And I would definitely suggest that that indeed can be the case. Like anything, it's if you transition, it's based on your own decision to do so. So whatever you have experienced on the real side is obviously so poignant and intense and perhaps real to the personal self, particularly if it lacks awareness, that it may genuinely think it has died or is dying to the extent that translates as the decision to actually transition from the physical and therefore die on the physical level. And I would suggest that's why there are a lot of crib deaths as well. So I suggest that a baby or young children would have a lot of difficulty differentiating between what is happening on the physical level and what is happening in the dream arena. Obviously, they're all both experiences and all all as real as each other. But nevertheless, when people get older, they start to be able to realise, okay, I was attacked on the real side or in the dream state, but that was only a dream. But for a child, they would have less trouble differentiating, and for them, it may be real enough. They may actually think they were dying, and that will actually almost be tantamount to the decision to transition. And so, in a rather long-winded answer, yes, I do believe that you can die on the physical because of that.
And how does like cutting the astral cord, you have any experience with that? How do they do that?
Personally, I've never seen this astral cord, and I've done a lot of astral projections. I'm not denying that it is present, because that seems to be part of the process. Every time you project a body, an astral cord is attached to your physical vehicle as you project wherever you do. And so maybe it's just a perceptual inadequacy on my part that disallows me from seeing it. But personally, I've never seen this cord, but as I understand it, as I understand, it can be severed, though obviously I haven't experienced it being severed myself. But if the cord were to be severed, then that would also force a transition, because for whatever reason you are now no longer able to return to your physical body, and now you would find yourself floating around in whichever part of the real side, whichever dimension of it, the astral or whatever you were projecting to. But for me, when I astral project, I never have any trouble returning to my body. I have to simply think about my physical body, and I will return to it instantaneously, wherever on the real side I happen to be, or wherever I've projected to. So regardless of your situation, the circumstances you're in, or no matter what strange, far-flung place you happen to find yourself in, you simply imagine or think about your personal body, and in it you return. And on a lot of occasions, when I did do astral projections, it was actually the trick to not to think about your physical body, otherwise back into it you would go, and there would end the experience. This is a very common thing with astral projectors, and I would suggest there have been a lot of astral projectors who tend to end up being in comas, and this is probably along the same sort of lines, that they haven't fully detached from their connection. Their awareness hasn't fully left their physical body. There's a tenebrous link with it, but they are still somehow lost on wherever they projected to, and unable to return their awareness fully to their physical body. And that is a very common thing with astral projectors. They can find themselves in these comas. Yeah.
There's this fellow in Grass Valley, California. He does regressions, past life regressions he used to do. Michael Newton, his name was. And he found that he could regress people back to in between lives, and they would share their experiences, not just past lives, but what happened in between lives. So one of the interesting things he brought up was that people bring into the physical only like a certain percentage of their awareness. This is how he stated it. Like a person may bring in only 20% of their awareness, and they may be struggling, mentally or emotionally, or really have a hard time coping with the physical world because they only brought in a certain amount of their awareness. Some people bring in 80% or something. So do you see anything to that? Do you have any comments on, do you see any validity to that, or the process, how that would work? Or is that just choice, or is that just like mechanics and choice from the people that come in? But do you have any comments on that?
I think that would be along the lines of grounding, I think, because that could apply to a lot of people in all sorts of circumstances, because obviously when you have your personal self, you're inserting your awareness in it, and then you're experiencing through it the way you've set up its created consciousness, which cause and affects the simulation in however way you have constructed it. But it's also depending on the extent to which you are fully in that simulation. And I mean, an easy example will be people who are daydreamers, for example. Even though they're on the physical level, they're very much in their imagination body as well. And the same could be held true with people who have certain cognitive dysfunctions or conditions such as Alzheimer's, or more like autism and Asperger's and things of this nature. These people are never fully present. They're there, but their awareness is also I mean, awareness is everywhere anyway, but a lot of times I find that myself, that a lot of it is that I'm not able to fully bring my focus in fully onto the physical. I'm sort of floating around somewhere else, and so a lot of the times with me, it's I can't concentrate as well as I would like, and therefore convey what I'm trying to say as well as I would if I was fully present. So a lot of it is along those lines, sort of grounding really how much your awareness is in the physical, and how much you are, as I say, daydreaming or in your imagination vehicle. Or even in the case of autistic people, I mean, they may just have a tiny percentage of their awareness here be enough to function the physical body, but really they're practically almost the entirety of their awareness would be more so on the real side as opposed to the physical level.
I went to a psychic once and they told me, yeah, I was out of the body and I just didn't come back one day. I don't know. Maybe I'm more inclined to ground, I like the grounding idea here, this lifetime. So I go to the ocean, I jump in the ocean pretty much every day just to get that physicality, and I like to move my body and hike and things like that just to get grounded here. So that's interesting. Fred, do you have any questions or comments?
Back in the conversation about people within your dreams, from another author years ago, an entity was attempting to contact President Kennedy within his dreams. This was an attempt by a good entity. And this entity reported back that in those days, believe it or not, he encountered a German Shepherd, which was a defense in President Kennedy's dreams. They already provided for a defense for something like this happening back in the 60s. Just thought I'd pass that on to you.
So this is like in Inception. He had in defenses, they were expecting this, or they were anticipating something like this. So they hired these bodyguards, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
The Kennedy people hired them, correct. Psychic bodyguards.
Yeah.
That's quite an item for the 60s, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you see, it's been going on all the time. We're just becoming aware of certain things here, but the elites and the reptilians have been at it for a long, long time.
Of course, he needed all the protection he could get.
Well, regarding Inception, I thought the concept was interesting of just how this is, I mean, these aren't forms of entertainment. They're more so documentary. So they're telling you what they do to people, but more so like, I'll give a little experience on my end is where I wasn't aware of this, but I became aware that I was having some psychic attacks done to me. And I wasn't aware of that, but it's strange just basically to say that the extents that they go to just have you decide something or to agree to an idea, because it really could be that subtle, that an agreeing to an idea could potentially have like could say domino effect in a way.
Yeah. Every one of these movies is consciously, purposely put out for a purpose, for their purpose. It's no accident they come out at certain times of the year and what they're about. And it's just, they work at it very much to prepare people for their agendas. And movies are a great way. Netflix is a great way to prepare people. Predictive programming, prepare people for what's coming.
Yes, and Netflix was started, it's like a psychological operation, Netflix. It was started by the Freud family, which goes along the lines of the whole, they started the women on smoking. That was a little government program. And then the children of that man started Netflix. They have an interesting history, that family.
Who are they again? Floyd?
The Freud family. You could look up Sigmund Freud and the studies he did, and you can follow the trail a little bit. You'll figure out that this family did a lot of things and in the area of psychology, psychological research on traumas and stuff. And so eventually down the line, the government hired a Freud family member to start a smoking campaign to get women to smoke, claiming that it was their feminist liberation. That was the idea, but it was really just for sales of cigarettes and to impact society in that way. And then the children of that man, I think, I'm not sure the first name, but it was a Freud. And then the children of that man that did the smoking campaign, which was government funded, actually started Netflix. And on Netflix, you see, I mean, there's some stuff there, but there's a lot of bizarre, bizarre things like they romanticize certain aspects like suicide and all these other ideas for people to see and ultimately agree with. I mean, that's the goal right there.
Look at the 40s, 50s, the smokers in the movies became, again, romanticized. Everybody's smoking, even the news like news shows, the interview shows, people were smoking. It was just the thing to do. And then it's a way to promote, in the society, what's cool at that time was cool. The commercials, your doctor recommends Camels as, over Terratons or Chesterfields. So and he wears a white coat, so he's official, he's the authority. And then we are where we are now, where the COVID and all that, it's just the authority figures and how they're just marketing everything through the media. Whereas the media could be wonderful. It could be a way to promote awareness and things that make sense with the environment. There's so much potential that it has, and that's where the nonprofit that we're working with will be taking like Kevin's experiences and putting him into Netflix series and documentaries and showing people how wonderful it can be to become more aware.
Well, just to kind of mention again that it's all a marketing ploy. That's all it is. And it's really, it's nothing that they're doing. All they're really doing is getting you to agree to their ideas and what it is they want you to create. And that's that.
Yeah, very simple agreement. We're looking for agreement too, but it's for a benefit, whereas the elites are for themselves and for the control factor. So it's just what makes sense. Well, thank you everybody for being on. And we usually sing the New You for a finish here. And that's the way to connect to something very real. And this is the way it goes. New you. Kevin?
You.
Fred?
No, you.
And Jeremy?
New you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week with Dead Poets Society.